Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
Positronic hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to give you a breakdown and review of the new film Thunderbolts, which was just released today. So let's get to it. As the movie starts, in Malaysia, Yelena Belova destroys a laboratory on behalf of CI director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine in order to conceal her involvement with the OXE Group's Sentry Superhuman project. De Fontaine faces imminent impeachment for her work with OX Group. She dispatches Belova, John Walker, Ghost, and Taskmaster to a covert OX facility under the pretense of a mission. Once there, the operatives are pitted against one another in a deadly confrontation where Ghost kills Taskmaster before a mysterious man named Bob unexpectedly appears. Upon learning that they were all sent by De Fontaine to be incinerated along with any evidence of her misconduct, they manage to escape from the trap. De Fontaine learns that the group, including Bob, who was presumed dead during the Sentry trials, has survived. When she arrives at the site, Bob creates a diversion by drawing enemy fire towards himself without sustaining injury, allowing Belova, Walker, and Ghost to escape. Bob then ascends into the air before crash landing back at the compound, where he is captured and transported to the former Avengers Tower in New York City, now renamed the Watchtower. Meanwhile, Alexei Shostakov, a.k.a. Yelena's father, a.k.a. Red Guardian, who had overheard details of De Fontaine's plot while working as a freelance chauffeur, rescues Belova, Walker, and Ghost. Inspired by Belova's childhood soccer team's name, Shostakov dubs the group the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts are pursued by De Fontaine's agents before they are ultimately apprehended by Bucky Barnes, who intends to have them testify in the impeachment proceedings against De Fontaine. Upon learning that Bob was a subject of one of De Fontaine's top-secret experiments, Barnes joins forces with the Thunderbolts to head to New York to infiltrate the Watchtower. The Thunderbolts discover that De Fontaine has turned Bob into an immensely powerful superhuman known as the Sentry, who easily overpowers the team and forces them to retreat. As the Sentry develops a godlike delusion of superiority over even the Avengers, thanks to De Fontaine, he turns on her. However, her assistant, Mel, incapacitates him with the fail-safe kill switch. This, however, triggers the emergence of the Sentry's destructive alter ego, the Void, who begins turning everyone in his vicinity into shadows and engulfs New York City in supernatural darkness. Knowing that the only way to stop the Void is from within, Yelena enters the Shadow Realm to reach Bob's consciousness. There she faces her own haunted past as a Black Widow and finds Bob hiding in a mental construct of his childhood bedroom. They're soon joined by the Thunderbolts, and together, they travel back to the memory of Bob's initial experimentation in Malaysia. The Thunderbolts confront the Void, but are swiftly overpowered. As the struggle threatens to fully consume Bob, the team intervenes, affirming their belief in him. Their solidarity empowers Bob to regain control, overcoming the Void, as light and normalcy is returned to the city. With the threat neutralized, the Thunderbolts prepare to apprehend De Fontaine. However, she manipulates public reception by staging a press conference in which she rebrands the Thunderbolts as the new Avengers. And then in a post-credit scene, the new Avengers and Bob discuss ongoing problems in outer space when they receive a distress signal from space, and then examine some satellite footage, which reveals an enormous spacecraft heading towards Earth, emblazoned with a large 4 emblem. And that was the total end of the film there in the post-credits. So that is a pretty basic breakdown of the plot. There are a lot of moments that are not detailed therein, which you have to see in order to get the full picture of what this movie represents. And to my mind, what it represents is a really great story about the human condition, about the dealing with and overcoming of trauma and self-doubt and things of that nature. And to me, great stories are the ones that deal with these things. It's why I was so in love with Star Trek The Next Generation and why I really liked Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager. It's why I really liked the original series Star Trek movies. And it's why I've liked so many other films and shows in the past, Buffy the Vampire Slayer being one of them. I could rattle off a list. So I really enjoyed this movie because of that. And, this isn't to say that it's a big mope fest. It isn't. There's a lot of great, great humor in it. There's a lot of great action in it. It's just that all of those elements are surrounded by a story that ultimately is about rising above your self-doubt and the damage that past traumas have done to you. And it comes through in large part because of the characters Yelena and Bob, but also Red Guardian, though it also comes through with the John Walker character, the bargain basement Captain America, as it were. And so I really enjoyed all of that. As I said, there's a lot of humor and a lot of action, and all of that stuff was very well done and worked very well. So I enjoyed the hell out of that. So for me, the whole, kit and caboodle, the way they wove it together and balanced it out in terms of tone, really, really worked. And I just enjoyed it a great deal. Florence Pugh in this film is a revelation in acting. She's just fantastic. The same can be said of David Harbour. He just nails it. And, that's not a surprise because he nailed it in The Black Widow. He was great in that. And, Florence Pugh was great in that as well. And that's why I knew I was going to love this movie, from having loved those two characters in Black Widow and in the case of Yelena, Hawkeye, and having seen in the trailer that, they were in the same form and doing the same things. I just knew I was going to love it. And I did. So I would say definitely go see it. It's just a really enjoyable film that has something to say and that will make you laugh as well. I do, however, want to say that I don't think it was a perfect film. I don't think it was a 10. The interesting thing about that is I apparently am in agreement on that particular rating with Mr. Matt McGloin over at Cosmic Book News. But of course, Matt only gave it an 8 instead of a 10 because he found all of the human condition stuff and the trauma stuff to be unnecessarily woke and to be stuff that, in his words, bogs down the movie, which of course is 100% ridiculous. It's the whole point of the movie. It's the whole part of the movie that makes the movie great. He also said that there was cringe dialogue, and I have no idea what he's talking about. But that's okay because neither does he. Other usual suspects, Critical Drinker, Gary over at Nerdrotic have also shit on it. In the case of Gary, again, it's because he doesn't understand that all great art is going to speak to us on a level that connects with our humanity and that explores the human condition and helps us understand the human condition, which this film does in spades, which Black Widow did in spades, which The Usual Suspect also shat all over for that reason. The crazy thing about that is when Deep Space Nine was doing this stuff, Star Trek, when TNG was doing this stuff in the late 80s and early 90s, they probably loved it. And I say that because I know them to be people who talk about how much they used to love Star Trek. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is in the late 80s and early 90s, no one was out there telling them that all this emotional stuff, this human condition stuff, was woke garbage. But somewhere back around the time that Disney started to have political leanings, as well as other companies, people started to lash out against that because of their politics. And so now anything that Disney does can't be good, right? Because Disney is the company that has leftward political leanings. So you have to shit on it. It's a requirement. And so that's why people like Matt McGloin and Gary and Critical and Dichter, Von Doomcock will shit all over these things and do shit all over these things because they're children who don't understand that this is what makes art worthwhile and that they're only hating on it because they don't like gay people, they don't like women in prominent roles, and they don't like people of color in prominent roles, unless within those prominent roles they behave in ways that they think are acceptable for those types of people to behave. And so, or they do realize it and they can't step out of the box to admit that something that contains some or all of those things is actually good when it is, because their audience would leave them in droves. And it's just sad. Anyway, I don't think this was a perfect movie. I think that it took much longer than it should have for them to get to the part where Sentry starts attacking New York. I think that part of the movie where he becomes an actual threat felt a little tacked on because they couldn't resolve it in a time frame that was longer than the time frame they resolved it in, because the movie would have gone into 3-hour territory. And I don't think they wanted to do that. It's 2 hours and 6 minutes as is. So the acts felt imbalanced. The overall film felt imbalanced because there was a lot of, I don't want to say build up, but there was a lot of pre-conflict stuff that happened, all of which, by the way, is great. I loved all of it. I thought it all deserved to be in the movie. I don't think it bogs the movie down at all. I don't think it's wasted time at all. It's all great stuff. I loved every second of it. But when they then didn't do what they needed to do and take the movie into 3-hour territory in order to make the actual conflict with the Void seem substantial, they dropped the ball and they made the movie imbalanced. So I can't give it a 10. I also wasn't 100% clear on DeFontaine's motivations outside of just wanting to amass power, which I suppose is a perfectly good motivation for a villain in a film, but that isn't the character that I thought she was up to this point, so maybe I missed something. But it just seemed odd that all of a sudden she was interested in amassing huge amounts of personal power. And, you know, to that point, I never realized that she was so deep in the muck with these giant, giant facilities full of, you know, off-book projects. The amount of stuff that she has been doing is depicted as monumental in this. And I didn't know that that's where we were with that character, so it kind of caught me off guard. Of course, there was a bit of a retcon wherein the name of our team of heroes, Thunderbolts, comes from Yelana's childhood soccer team, which of course is not how it was in the comics. But I don't think that took away from the movie. I just thought I would mention it because it's kind of funny. I also didn't love how in the end, Bob is just left to his own devices. He comes back to himself. He separates from the Void, and he's normal again, at least as far as his personality, and no longer a threat. But he's just allowed to be a free person, and I didn't think that made sense. I thought that they would have had to deal with him in some way to keep him from turning into the Void again by sealing him away in some kind of place where he couldn't get out, you know, sedated, until such time as they figured out how to help him not be the Void anymore. So I thought it was weird that he was kind of just let loose. I don't know, maybe the theory was that as long as he was with the Avengers, they could contain him. But I don't know. And that didn't make sense to me. So not a perfect 10, but definitely an 8. And I can't stress enough how great the scenes are in this movie where they deal with personal trauma and then rise above it and lean into their humanity in order to save the day. I think it was just great stuff. And you should go see this movie. And I'm looking forward to the new Avengers, big time. Anyway, that's all I have to say. So I'm going to get out of here. I will be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.